Hello everybody, I'm Eternal Flame here, and today I'm here to discuss one of the most popular JJK versus battles, because if you've been in the JJK versus battle community, you've heard a lot of popular versus battles, and this is probably one of the most popular ones, behind of course Gojo versus Sukuna, and of course Yuta versus Akari, and Yuta versus Toji, and Yuta versus Kashimo, and Yuta versus Kenjaku. Okay, Yuta has a lot of very popular versus battle. However, we're not here to talk about any of those ones. No. What we're here to talk about today is Jogo versus Mahito and who would win in a fight between the two of them. So we're going to cover this both in terms of feats, what the characters have done, and then finally the narrative behind the fight, just to see who should be the winner between the two of them in this epic battle. I'm Eternal Flame, and let's get straight into this. Now up first, let's go over their base physical stats, and there is something really funny about Mahito versus Jogo as a debate, at least in my opinion, which is the fact that Mahito in literally every other stat other than speed outscales Jogo completely. In terms of physical stats, Jogo should scale right next to Hanami, purely because of the reason that Gege implies that Hanami and Jogo aren't actually stronger than one another, it's just that Jogo has a massive elemental advantage. So in terms of physical striking strength, Jogo and Hanami should be relative to each other. Sad about the fact that Jogo doesn't really have that many good striking feats. So scaling relative to Hanami in terms of striking strength is the best we can really do for him, which should get him above Goodwill Yuji after landing a Black Flash, as well as Todo with the Playful Cloud in that arc in terms of striking strength. So yeah, Jogo doesn't exactly have the best striking strength in terms of strength, or even the best AP when it comes to his normal average flames. Mainly because of the fact that when an extremely battle fatigued and extremely injured Nanami got hit with a Jogo flame, while Nanami got damaged, Nanami was still able to survive it nonetheless, as well as Maki, who should be weaker than Yuji, was also able to survive it as well. Meanwhile, there is Mahito, who should scale relative to, if not straight up above in terms of striking strength, to a late-end Shibuya Yuji, who massively exceeds the power he had in Goodwill, especially considering the fact that Yuji had also landed 2 Black Flashes by that point, and Mahito was still going bar for him relative in terms of striking strength. If not, true form Mahito was exceeding that level of Yuji in terms of strength. So in terms of striking strength, the best you can scale Jogo to is Hanami. Meanwhile, you can scale Mahito to someone who should, at least in striking strength, scale massively above the Yuji that was able to damage said Hanami and keep up with that Hanami. Speaking of, in terms of durability, even if we were to ignore Mahito's soul hacks, which I'm going to get into later into the video, Mahito's extremely durable, like stupidly durable. In his true form, he was able to tank and no-sell this same Yuji's punches, down to the point where Yuji himself had stated that he wouldn't be able to hurt him without a Black Flash, and it would have to be a 100% Black Flash at that. A weaker previous Yuji was able to hurt Hanami several times with their normal punches after just landing 1 Black Flash. Let alone this Mahito, who was able to no-sell and tank Yuji's punches after Yuji had landed 2 Black Flashes. And to bring this all back to Jogo, Jogo is less durable than Hanami, who Hanami was able to get hurt by normal Yuji punches, who by extension should scale massively below true form Mahito in terms of durability. And now I'm just going to do a quick debunk of the 2 most common arguments I have seen to make Jogo more durable, which is A, he's able to take Sukuna's punches, which no, he is not. Every time Sukuna hits him, he needs to regenerate, so Jogo is not at all able to take any of Sukuna's hits. And B, he survived a red from Gojo, which he did, but this red was suppressed to such a point that it was below Gojo's blue fists when he was bloodlusted. This is mainly because of the fact that Jogo says himself that in the early encounter between Gojo and himself, when they did a little hand-to-hand scuffle, that if he didn't have domain amplification, he would be dead. But even if you don't believe these work as debunks, we already have a scaling chain because Gege has directly confirmed himself that Hanami is more durable than Jogo, and by statements you can get Mahito as more durable than Hanami because of the fact that Yuji is able to harm Hanami with his normal punches when he is much weaker. But Jogo does have one massive advantage, which is his speed, because as much as I do think that Mahito is better than him in terms of striking strength, in terms of durability, there's the issue of Jogo is just far too fast for Mahito to handle in a fight. This is due to the fact that Mahito is only a bit faster than Yuji, who Yuji himself is getting perception blitzed by Naoya level fighters when Naoya is not even taking it too seriously. Meanwhile, Jogo is relative in speed to a non-stacked Naobito at that point, because of the fact that Dagon says that Naobito might be faster than Jogo, which is implying that there is some level of relativity between the two of them. Now, I will say this, I don't think Jogo is perception blitzing Mahito at all, purely because of the fact that Mahito was actually able to join in the battle against Gojo in the attempt to seal him, and he was able to fight alongside Jogo, and if Jogo was at this perception blitz level of speed, then Mahito wouldn't really be of too much help. So while I do think Jogo is certainly faster than Mahito, I don't think that Jogo is that much faster than Mahito to the point where he's going to be perception blitzing Mahito at all. Just that he's going to be extremely fast for Mahito, and it's going to be extremely difficult for Mahito to hit him. But that's just talking about their sheer raw physical stats. I haven't actually gone into their abilities yet. However, stats aren't really everything, because these two have very impressive hacks and abilities that actually make this a much more fun fight to talk about. For example, y'all remember how I went on for a little bit about how Mahito is actually much more durable than Jogo? Well, all of that is completely irrelevant because of the fact that Jogo can't even hurt Mahito. To be able to hurt Mahito, you need to have some awareness level of the soul or a domain expansion. Either that or burning through Mahito's cursed energy supply down to the point where he can no longer use his cursed technique. But it is actually somewhat implied through the Mahito vs Mechamaru fight that burning-based and heat-based attacks are actually able to burn through his cursed energy supply even faster in comparison to normal-based attacks because of what Mechamaru chooses to use against Mahito. However, burning through Mahito's cursed energy supply is not going to be some easy task, mainly because of the fact that Mahito in the Shibuya Arc was able to transfigure over 1,000 humans, all for the sake of turning them into transfigured humans and using them as weapons, if not a massive amount of them even further, because of how much we saw just going across Shibuya, which these transfigured humans are around the level of a grade 2 and grade 3 curse. And despite doing that, he was still able to fight against Yuji, Todo, and Nobara all at the same time, while also nerfing himself against the Nobara in particular because he had a clone of himself active, so he couldn't really have access to his full power. Furthermore, Mahito also has a one-shot type of factor, where I don't think he's going to be able to one-shot Jogo because of how strong Jogo is, and we know you can use Curse Energy to shield your soul, so it'll likely take some touches in order to actually one-shot Jogo and kill him, but it is very possible for Mahito to do that as well, especially because Jogo is not consciously aware of the soul. And now this is where we're going to get into their domain expansions for a little bit, because I am going to do two types of battle scenarios, where the first one is going to be if they immediately open up their domains, and the second one is going to be basically if they can't use their domains at all, because I think that's the more fun one to do. However, here is the issue with them in a domain clash. It's actually super hard to say which would win the domain clash between the two of them. Let me explain. For Mahito, you could argue that Mahito might be able to win a domain clash mainly because of his access to a 0.2 second domain expansion, which should say something about his massive domain skill and the fact that he has a much more lethal domain, but you also might be able to make the argument that Jogo is much older than Mahito and much more experienced in using domains, so he might be able to win the domain expansion clash instead. You could also somewhat support this argument by it being stated in the beginning of the series that Mahito is really bad with barriers. However, Mahito might have rapidly improved through his battles against Yuji Itadori, which has allowed him to evolve massively up until this point. So I will say this, if you think that Mahito is a better domain user, then you can give Mahito the win in domain clash and just say GG no re from here. But if you think Jogo is the better domain user, you can give Jogo the win in the domain clash, because basically whoever ends up winning the domain expansion ends up winning the battle overall. Especially because after Mahito uses a domain expansion, his curse technique is going to be on cooldown. Now, I personally lean closer to Mahito winning the domain clash than Jogo, because Jogo's arguments are mainly based around how old he could have been, or if he's had his domain expansion for that much longer in comparison to Mahito, which we don't really know the answers to. However, you can make better arguments for Mahito based on him having a 0.2 second domain expansion, and just him evolving so incredibly fast to make up for his issue of not being good with barriers. But it could really go either way, and I'm going to leave that to you guys in the comment section down below to debate and decide. However, them without their domains makes this fight so much more massively interesting. Because what it ultimately comes down to is, can Jogo wear down Mahito's massive cursed energy supply down to the point where Mahito can use his technique over 1,000 times when Mahito was a bit weaker than what he is at his absolute peak, before Mahito can land enough hits on Jogo? Now, for the sake of this battle, we are going to give Mahito all the humans he had inside of Shibuya inside of his battle against Yuji, because I think that makes things a lot more fair. But there are just so many things that could be going into this battle that could give both of them an advantage. For example, Jogo has an easy way to deal with a lot of the transfigured humans that Mahito can end up making, because of how good he is at area control. Meanwhile, Mahito can repeatedly duplicate himself and make several Mahitos in order to fight that are both relative to himself in terms of speed, making it even more likely that he can overcome the massive speed gap. His durability in his body, which is going to make it even more difficult to actually damage him. Mahito's ability to be able to combine around 10 humans at once to make incredibly powerful transfigured humans that don't have much durability, and him being able to spam those while overwhelming Jogo with numbers, while at the same time Jogo just overwhelms him with his massive amount of firepower. Even Mahito avoiding maximum meteor while he's using several of his transfigured humans to slow it down just a little bit to give himself a little bit more time. This battle could just be an epic one of epic proportions, but this is when I ultimately feel narrative comes into play, and one more important part of this, which is Mahito's near endless potential. Mahito has shown by far and away one of the quickest rates of improvement, down to the point where he was able to will himself to land a black flash after getting so into the zone, down to the point where he could massively evolve his abilities, going from someone who would have been a Nanami victim to someone who could easily take out several Nanamis on his own and then some. Thanks to Mahito's mentality and his ever-growth mindset that he had, he was able to grow massively and exceed the powers of a lot of curses, which was something that Jogo himself saw. Jogo saw that Mahito would surpass him one day, and that was why Jogo made Mahito the leader of the disaster curses. And Mahito did end up surpassing Jogo in almost every facet other than literally just speed. With a much grander moveset, much better striking power, much better durability, and just much better area control, as well as the ability to end fights near instantly even without a domain just by touching people. All this is just to say this: if we assume that Mahito doesn't get enough lucky hits in and enough lucky taps, what I see happening most often is Mahito continuing to experiment, Mahito continuing to figure out new ways to get stronger and better, to eventually take down Jogo and eventually beat him, eventually being able to catch up to him in speed, or at least be fast enough to the point where he'd be able to actually rival Jogo and hit him in speed. And like that, it would be wraps, where Mahito doesn't even need to touch him to one-shot him, where Mahito could likely just take him out with physical strength. Ultimately, what I see happening more often than not when Mahito and Jogo fight is Mahito improving himself to the point where he can reach the level of Jogo in speed, the one gap that exists between the two of them, and eventually be able to beat and surpass Jogo. After all, Mahito's potential was the most dangerous thing about him, Nanami noting it in particular, that Mahito needed to die and fast, because if he continued to grow, he would be a potential problem for everybody, and it was a good thing that Yuji wiped him out when he did and Kenjaku finished him off, because if Mahito continued to exist and continued to grow past that battle, then only the world knows what would have happened if Mahito just got stronger and stronger and continued to grow. However, that's my opinion on Mahito versus Jogo, where Mahito would eventually evolve in order to reach the levels of Jogo in speed to be able to actually hit him. Of course, the result of a domain expansion would actually be somewhat ambiguous. It's kind of hard to tell who actually has a better domain between the two of them, and that I will leave up to you guys in the comment section down below to actually debate about and decide. However, that's my opinion on Mahito versus Jogo. I'm gonna see y'all later. Peace out. Hope y'all have a good day. Bye.